You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Hey there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda. Welcome to episode 252 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I have a bourbon-soaked story for you today about diabolical bingo and off-brand synergy. But first, let's have some bourbon. Cheers, y'all. Y'all. I feel like I need to send a little note to my liver that says something like, "Shut up, you're fine." It's been a crazy couple of weeks here, and I'm very happy to say that we survived our very first Mardi Gras. It was pretty spectacular, even with all the restrictions that they had in place. Now, what I didn't realize is that Mardi Gras isn't just Fat Tuesday. It's days and days of celebrating. There's brunches and cocktails and dinners and more cocktails, and it all eventually culminates on Fat Tuesday, which starts around 10 a.m. and then continues well into the night. We spent Mardi Gras with our new friends, a tremendous group of people who have welcomed us into their crazy crew just like family. Their generosity truly is just amazing, and to be honest, I'm still a little surprised that it extends to me at all. I mean, my guy, he's naturally likable. Me, sometimes I just don't know. Personal connections and friendship just don't come naturally for me. Like, for example, I'm part of a group text with our friends. This in itself is dramatically uncharacteristic because in the past, if you've listened to the show enough, you know, I never, ever gave out my phone number. My parents don't even use my phone number. If either of them need me, they call my guy. But here I am, regularly fielding a text conversation between 7 or 8 people and actually really enjoying it. The trouble is that I second-guess everything I contribute. I'll spend 20 minutes searching for the perfect GIF, which means by the time I send something off, conversation has completely moved on and then it's left hanging there awkwardly. Believe me, I know I am being ridiculous. It's just that I like these people, and I worry sometimes. Because I have been known, more often than I should admit, to fuck up a good thing. I do. Sometimes it's not even a good thing that I ruin, but just a nice thing. A completely innocuous, unhurtful, perfectly fine thing that I will decimate with snark and my shitty attitude. Like I did at a certain job back in Chicago. I was an editorial supervisor with a mid-level company that specialized in digital marketing. And as far as gigs go, it wasn't a bad one. Mostly, I spent my time coaching young writers through the hazards of writing for a client and not themselves. I suppose I could have angled for more. A better title, a bigger team, more projects. But the truth was, I was too comfortable to care. The position was just senior enough to feel as though my career experience wasn't all in vain, but low enough to avoid any real responsibility. The hotshots who ran this place looked to Facebook and Google as their corporate Sherpas, and they outfitted our building to be millennial accessible. We had everything you needed to avoid doing any work, from a foosball table to a lounge stocked with free snacks. Now me, I've always been a get in and get out kind of gal. Now mind you, this was years ago, before working from home became the norm, so I loathed the idea of treating the office like anything other than a place to get shit done. If I had to schedule a meeting, it was always in a conference room with actual chairs and not a pile of fucking beanbags. I was more than happy to skip breaks and lunches if it meant walking out the door when my 8 hours were up. And Lord knows I never socialized. This didn't exactly jive with the work ethic of my boss, a kid that I will call Myles. He spelled it with a Y and maybe a tilde and smiley face, and he was the first and only boss I've ever had who was younger than me. I suspect he got his job on sheer enthusiasm alone. That and being the biggest suck-up I've ever met. This guy got off on playing by the rules. He was in love with charts and lists and tasks that he could gold star at the end of the day. Like, ooh, you shared your toy? You get a sticker. What's that? You cleaned up after yourself? You get a sticker. Our department ran like Romper Room. Hell, the whole company did. We had a standard meeting every week. Technically, they called it an open mic meeting, but privately I called it the Friday Feelings meeting. Because the only set agenda was to, and you'll have to imagine the air quotes here, take the pulse of the company. We were encouraged to stand up and share our feelings, to offer encouragement or compliments to our coworkers. It was the biggest goddamn love fest you would ever hate to attend, and God, did I ever hate it. I dreaded these exercises in futility because they were always scheduled just before copy drafts were due to one of my clients. I would have been far better served using the time to make last-minute changes that always came up, or, I don't know, maybe just actually work instead of listening to Jenny from accounting tell Bill from payroll just how great he was at getting paychecks out on time. You know, doing his job. And yes, I know what a fucking bitch I sound like. I know this because Myles frequently told me. Not that he used the word bitch. No. He would call me into the space that served as his office. We didn't have any actual doors in this place. And he would get this so sad look on his hairless face and tell me I was falling below the line and giving off-brand synergy when all I wanted was to be left alone to do my job. It's not like any of these feel-good activities were horrible. I just didn't see their point. I didn't need a pat on the head or donuts to be motivated. That's what my paycheck was for. The problem was that it wasn't just about me being motivated. Myles wanted everyone to feel appreciated. And apparently, several people on my team weren't feeling special enough. He challenged me to transform my sucky work ethic and create new ways to get my team engaged. Yeah. The only thing I wanted to be engaged with at that point was a rope and a chair. But since I didn't want to deal with Myles any more than I had to, I decided to play along by my own rules. My plan was to come up with a team-building activity so asinine and so consuming, it would demonstrate just what a colossal waste of time this all was. Quality would slip, work would be late, and my point would be made. I gathered my team and announced a desk decorating project. The parameters were simple. Over the next week, each person was to take all the time they needed to construct a desk display that represented them as a person. They could get as creative as they wanted. Hell, build a whole new fucking desk. I didn't care. Then I would treat the whole team to an ice cream social the following Friday where we could take the time to tour each other's desks and really get to know one another. Their expressions, it said it all. They were all over this idea. I've never seen my team so excited. They got to work immediately, bringing in boxes of crap and spending hours assembling elaborate tributes to themselves. By the end of the week, so little actual work had been done, I had to inform our clients that their projects would be late due to team building. Then I circulated a company-wide email apologizing for missing every one of our deadlines, but I encouraged everyone to stop by and check out the amazing creativity my team had displayed in reimagining their workspaces. Oh, this was some elaborate shit that they'd built. One guy lined his desk walls with blinking fairy lights. Some chick attached about 50 helium balloons to her desk chair. Another guy planted a garden made from astroturf and fabric flowers under his desk. Even I got in on the fun. I hauled a fucking beach umbrella into the office and propped it up over my desk. I surrounded myself with pictures of flamingos and palm trees, and as a thinly veiled fuck you to Myles, I also hung a small stuffed vulture from the center of the umbrella. Were this any other company that I have worked for in the past, the powers in charge would take one look at that corral of crazy and firebomb us all. So I wasn't surprised when Myles called me into a conference room later that month. He was joined by his boss and some chick from HR, and quite honestly, with that lineup, I figured I might be in for something more substantial than a talking to. Now, mind you, I wasn't going to throw my team under the bus for all the backlogged projects. I was going to take full responsibility and utilize the opportunity to demonstrate the need to realign our priorities. I just never got the chance. Myles opened the gathering by complimenting how much to heart I'd taken our previous chats. He says, "You and your team have made a complete turnaround," which was a bit of a stretch, seeing as how we'd turned nothing around in the past few weeks. But Myles wasn't talking work. He was talking morale. He goes on to say how I am an inspiration to the company, a true shining leader, and for that, he was pleased to say they were making me Employee of the Month. They hand me a certificate and a bag full of trick-or-treat candy like I'm 10, and I want so badly to laugh. I mean, they can't be serious. On what planet do you award people for doing nothing? So I ask, what about the projects we delayed? But the web team alone would be a solid week behind thanks to our slacking. And you know what Myles says? Don't worry about it. What you did was more important. However did you think of it? How did I think of that? I channeled Sesame Street and then removed all accountability, and apparently failed miserably at making my point. I grab my stupid goodie bag and I'm about to leave the room when Myles stops me. And now he's more jazzed than ever and practically frothing as he reminds me about the upcoming Employee Awards show. Oh yeah, that was a thing. And just the mention of that atrocity was enough to make my eye twitch. You see, later that month, the company would be staging an Oscar-like award presentation, red carpet and all. Only instead of showcasing and voting on our best work from the past year, we'd been asked to vote on things like most cheerful disposition, nicest compliment, and best email signature quote, just so we could avoid hurting any feelings or leaving any non-creatives out. In between these so-called awards, employees would be staging little skits and performances, and that's where he wanted me to come in. As the newly instated Employee of the Month, Myles wanted me to harness some of my creative genius and add my own contribution to the show. Just think of the possibilities, he says. Why don't you get your team together and see what you can come up with? And again, I have to ask, what about our workload? Shouldn't that take priority now that we're behind schedule? Nope. Myles and his boss both insist that I focus on the awards skit. I walk out shaking my head because none of this makes any sense to me. This was an office, not summer camp. Ignoring our work for the next 2 weeks in favor of a fucking skit went against every work ethic I had. And believe me, I don't have many. I couldn't, in good conscience, bring my team into this nightmare, despite how desperately I knew they wanted to be involved. No, I insisted they catch up on their workloads while I sat down to figure out something that wouldn't make me feel like a high school theater reject. Oof. 2 days were spent banging my head on my desk. I spent another 2 days debating the ramifications of getting caught with a travel mug full of amphetamines. Because I'll tell you, booze just wasn't cutting it. Finally, on the 5th day, I had it. The night before, I'd watched one of the Saw movies, And it proved to be just the inspiration I needed. Screw staging a skit. We were going to play a game. In theory, it was a brilliant idea. It would be completely unique and a break from whatever nonsense everyone else would be putting on. Plus, the whole company could be involved, which would score big points on Myles' engagement meter. It was my execution that was, well, it was shit. It was not good. And this is 100% because I am a thoughtless moron. In my defense, I really did intend for my little game to be fun and funny. I mean, we were going to play bingo. It's impossible to not have fun playing bingo. Just not this particular version of bingo. So the award show took place on a Friday afternoon. They actually rented out a local ballroom to hold it. And as promised, employees were greeted with a real red carpet, paparazzi-style photographers, and buckets of movie theater popcorn inside. As for the awards, well, they were just as ridiculous as I expected. My team won as a whole for Best Decorated Workspace, which wasn't exactly a stretch or testament to any real skill, and fucking Myles got a trophy for being the most optimistic. Had I a better disposition, I may have actually found this whole thing fun, like a normal person. But me, I was too wrapped up in my own annoyance to have any hope of having a good time. We should have been working. We should have been considering the needs of our many clients who were giving us good money to make them things. You celebrate a job well done, not a job well ignored. And I fully intended on making that clear in my own diabolical, yet lighthearted way. I had deliberately kept the event organizers in the dark about the full outline of my bingo game. And on the surface, everything looked normal, from the rolling cage of numbers to the standard bingo cards and markers that people found under their seats. But in my grimy little hands, I held a secret list of add-ons to every bingo number. So although the gameplay would be the same, the calling of the numbers would not. And the prizes? Well, those were a little unconventional too. I was the last act of the day, a grand finale of spectacularly horrible proportions. And again, I have to stress that I genuinely thought this would be funny. I went out on that stage with lady bingo balls the size of fucking coconuts and did my unwitting worst. We would play until every number had been called. If you got a bingo, you would collect your prize and then you'd be out for the rest of the game, while everyone else could keep playing on the same card without clearing it. It was the simplest format to follow, and it gave me the chance to deliver what I considered to be a cute little zinger with each number. It started fairly simple. 072, the number of donuts that we go through in a month. Next up was G47, which is exactly how many cat figurines Client Services Jenna has on her desk. Then there was B1, the number of times the microwave has been cleaned since the company opened. These were all met with giggles and snickers and maybe even a few blushes. But then I called G60, the number of times you want to stab Myles with a fork for using the word synergy. Now, I thought I was being all cute by saying, jab with a fork. I mean, that's funny and playful, right? Because you would never really do that. And even if you did, you wouldn't really do any real damage. And I'll tell you, it sure as hell was better than what I meant, which was more like beat with a rusty bike chain. But the entire room just went tight when I said that. And someone in the crowd even says, "Hey, that's not nice." But I plowed on anyway, convinced that my little game was just gold. My first inkling that maybe this wasn't going as great as I had hoped happened with the first bingo, which came on I-25, Just add 3 zeros to that number and you'll get the amount of money we're losing by being here. Crickets. Just brutal silence consuming every corner of the room until a lone voice reluctantly calls out, "Bingo, I guess." It wasn't exactly the enthusiasm that accompanies a bingo game. And it didn't improve any when I announced the prize, which was a certificate to claim all of the contents of the kitchen freezer. Again, humor. Humor, people. That freezer was a vile treasure trove of expired Weight Watchers entrees, vegetable stubs that never made it to the compost heap, and what may or may not have been a pair of jeans. Of course it was a lame prize. That was the point. Because sarcasm. Maybe that was just me. I still think that's funny. But it only got worse from there. I'd meant for bingo to come off as kind of a playful roast, but it turned into a takedown of every value and person they held sacred. My jokes varied from mildly amusing to just downright offensive. They eventually cut my mic off after B15, the number of clients who won't find our absence today nearly as cute as we do. Yeah, I was escorted off the stage then, and, well, their little award show met an uncomfortably abrupt end. Shockingly, they didn't fire me for that stunt. They didn't believe in doing things like that, and besides, their punishment was so much worse. First, I had to publicly apologize at the next Friday Feelings meeting for ruining the award show. Then I had to spend an entire day being reprogrammed through 8 hours of corporate sensitivity training. And after that, everyone just pretty much left me alone. Invitations to group outings stopped, the group chats ended, and no one ever saved me another donut. Well, a few months later, I turned in my resignation. They were so relieved to be rid of me. I was told I could skip the customary 2 weeks' notice and just take off that day if I wanted, which I did. It was the least I could do for them. In the end, I went on to a new job that suited me far better, both personally and professionally. Although, every so often I kind of missed the zany interludes of my old coworkers. I don't know, their happiness was occasionally a nice change from the usual somber tones of corporate work. And I'll definitely say that I was happy to learn my predictions about their company never did come to fruition. They didn't lose clients. They actually wound up thriving, and even occasionally won clients away from my new company, based solely on their positive synergy. I'm still not entirely sure what the hell synergy even is, but it's clearly not the villain here. And for that reason, I've been doing my best to be more open to new ideas and niceties and friendships. Like I said, it isn't my natural state, but y'all, I'm trying. I really am. And at the very least, I can promise you I will never host another bingo game again. Cheers, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Unwritable Rant podcast. Make sure you go to theunwritablerant.com to catch up on back episodes, to check out some of my merch, or if you're so inclined, you can buy me a drink. Just click on that little drink icon and you will be taken to a secure PayPal page where you can make a one-time donation to this show. You'll keep me in booze and I will keep you in boozy stories. And speaking of boozy stories, my gal Texas is coming to town next weekend and she and I are going to take New Orleans by storm. So I am sure there's going to be some sort of crazy bourbon-soaked story to come out of that. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great week. I can't wait to share more bourbon-soaked stories with you soon. Cheers, y'all.
Go to theunwritablerant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter @MorningNeurosis.
Girl, you was pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Corral. what you say we make our way up to Bourbon, a couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.